I'm just gonna say it now. I think people push fake dupes all the time to get views, especially when I was on a very, very tight budget with beauty products. I remember how frustrating it would be to try dupe after dupe. That was just absolutely awful. All this is to say that I am a stickler when it comes to dupe products. I'm going to be sharing with you all a bunch of affordable alternatives to high-end products that I truly stand behind. In some cases, I think that these are actually better. Let us go ahead and begin with skin prep. Now, you guys know how much I am absolutely obsessed with milky toners as skin prep for makeup. I also just love them in my skincare routine, and this one is completely covered in cat hair. Luckily, there's not much left. This is the Rhode Glazing Milk. I absolutely love this product. It is a little bit more pricey, but I do think it is such a beautiful milky emulsion that just adds this really lovely moisture without being overly greasy. It also leaves behind this really glazed, healthy, glassy glow to your skin when you use it. I love how nourished my skin feels, and there's just an element of relief when I put it on my skin. I absolutely love it. It is definitely one that I have recommended over and over. However, there are a lot of brands now coming out with more milky toners, which I absolutely love. In fact, I actually have two alternatives for you all so that you guys can find your absolute perfect match. So the newer item that I have been absolutely loving is the Prequel Half and Half Fluid Moisturizer. Now, I don't want you guys to get too caught up in the names of these products. So for example, this is the Glazing Fluid. The next product we're going to talk about is an essence. Ultimately, all of these are just very thin, lightweight lotions. So Prequel added peptides to this formula, and this is just a very barrier-loving, bouncy, milky, lightweight toner, essence, moisturizer, whatever you want to call it. And I just absolutely love the texture. It is much thicker than a lot of the traditional toners on the market. Even more milky toners often just kind of feel like a hyaluronic acid serum to me. I want there to be a little bit more richness, a little bit more emollients, and I want just a touch of a glow to my skin when I put on one of these products. Perhaps the most important part about using these items is that they give a lot of hydration without creating kind of this film or layer on the skin that a lot of moisturizers can give your skin. If you are someone that has consistently tried foundation after foundation after foundation, they all look cakey and you're not really sure why. Skin prep can actually be a huge reason why foundation can look awkward on the skin, because when your moisturizer and your foundation is not synergizing properly, the two layers can kind of move around and not really want to truly melt together. The Prequel does an absolutely excellent job of creating that really glassy, milky base, and makeup just glides so perfectly on top. Now, by the way, I always put on a sunscreen after I have applied this, but oftentimes at night I'll just use a few layers of this exclusively as my skin prep and not really use SPF, obviously, at night. I absolutely love the one from Prequel, and I do find that it is slightly less oily than the glazing fluid. So sometimes I want a little bit more oil, like true oil feel on my skin, and that's when I would maybe reach for the glazing fluid over the Prequel. But I think that the Prequel is going to get along with most skin types. It does not leave behind an oily kind of residue, which, again, the Rhode doesn't necessarily feel oily. It just, I know, I can tell that there's more oil to it. The Prequel, I think, is just really bouncy and hydrating. However, if you want something with a little bit more of that richness that the glazing fluid has, that is when I would recommend the Haru Haru Wonder Black Rice Barrier Essence. Now, all of these are more affordable than the Rhode Glazing Milk. Actually, you get a ton of product within the Prequel. you know, price per ounce, all of these are more affordable, but you can't necessarily walk into a drugstore and get some of these products. So I'm going to leave links down below for you guys. Truly, I'm just trying to give you the cream of the crop, the best of the best. And I think that that is ultimately what you guys want. The Horror Horror Wonder Barrier Essence, I know for a fact that you can get it reputably on Amazon, and this is a holy grail for me. This is slightly richer than the one from Prequel. It has a little bit more emollients to it. So I would say if you have dry skin, I would still recommend the Haru Haru Wonder as my number one. However, you know, my skin becomes more normal in the summer, and I'm probably going to be reaching for the Prequel more, especially as something to layer. So I absolutely love, truly you guys, I love all three of these. There are actually more that I also enjoy. I'm happy to do a video talking about my entire collection, ranking them. You leave me a comment down below if you're interested. I don't know how interested though people are in like how interested you guys are in like a full video like that. So, you know, take with that what you will. I'll just be on the lookout in the comments. The next dupe product that I have for you guys is one of those things that I'm just like, please, if you are interested in this one product, you gotta try this one first. This is the Makeup Forever Super Boost Skin Tint. Now, this is a new release. I really enjoyed this as I've been trying it, but I started to notice that I think the fragrance in here or something, I want to say it's the fragrance. Something in it just kind of makes my skin feel weird. It's not a pleasant feeling. And, you know, when I'm starting to get that vibe from my products, I tend to use them a lot less. But I always really liked the formula. Something felt very familiar about the formula. Every time I wore it, I was reminded of some sort of other skin tint like product. The Makeup Forever Boost is very, 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 very similar to the Illuminance Skin-Caring Foundation from Revlon. Now, if you've seen some of my other videos, you know how much I love this product. This is one of my favorite drugstore foundations. And honestly, if you're walking into the drugstore, this is my top recommendation, period. So the Makeup Forever, again, it's more of like a light to medium coverage. There's a nice blur, there's a nice glow. It doesn't sit awkwardly on the skin, and in general, it just kind of gives almost a MAC face and body kind of effect. Very dewy, but probably not quite as buildable as MAC face and body, but as a whole, incredibly similar. You know, if you're a fan of that, I think you'll be a fan of this. The Skin Caring Foundation from Revlon is very, very similar. In fact, on my face, you know, other than the shade match, the finish is the same, the blur is the same, and the Revlon is similar to the Makeup Forever in that you can't really build it up to like a full medium coverage. So they also have that in common. I just think that not enough people talk about this Revlon Skin Caring Foundation. By the way, both of these I believe also have squalane in them. They kind of both boast being nice for the skin. I'm just gonna go ahead and say, though, my skin didn't appreciate how much fragrance is in here, so the Revlon does not have fragrance to it. And by the way, they say that this is a medium coverage. I don't know if it's ever gonna give you the full medium coverage. That's just my experience, but it will give you such a natural skin-like effect. If you, again, if you're a fan of like MAC face and body, but you don't mind a little bit less coverage, if you've been wanting to try the Super Boost from Makeup Forever, definitely check out the one from Revlon. The only downside is that the Revlon does have less shades. That is something that's kind of common in more affordable and drugstore makeup, but I am seeing strides to change that. All right, next up, let's go ahead and talk about bronzer. In fact, we're gonna kind of talk about bronzer and contour, kind of realm of liquid bronzers and contours. I am a huge fan of cream bronzer. I have been on my channel for a very long time, but I am a stickler. I'm a stickler when it comes to cream makeup. The Rare Beauty Liquid Contour was a product I was incredibly excited to try, and I quite like it. I really do. And I was not a huge fan of the cream bronzer that they have because some days it looks really good, some days it doesn't. In fact, I was just with my sister. We were on her like mini bachelorette. She was very quickly doing her makeup. Listen, we were not doing well that morning. And she's like, Amanda, there's a streak of makeup like completely gone after I applied this. I'm like, you know what? Your makeup usually looks really good when you apply it, but occasionally that bronzer will do that. It will like pick up on different makeup. You have to be careful with cream bronzer is what I'm saying. I haven't had that experience with their liquid contour. And again, we're speaking kind of generally about contours and bronzers. Contours are always going to lean a touch more cool tone. That's just something to keep in mind. I like how blendable it is. It's definitely less pigmented than, say, the Rare Beauty liquid blushes. But ultimately, I find it to be a very natural looking contour. I really like the blendability. I like that it doesn't slip and slide on the skin. It's just in general really easy to work with. But it doesn't necessarily give me a ton of longevity. Sometimes I'm left at the end of the day being like, did I even put it on? I want more longevity, especially in the summer. So even though I like that one, it's probably more of a wintertime product for me because it can transfer a little bit. I don't think it's bad, just probably best for like fall winter makeup. And I think that's really important that there are some formulas that in general are going to get along better with us depending on the time of the year. That doesn't mean that they're bad products. I actually have two dupes for this. The first one that I tried is a newer product to me, but I am so genuinely impressed. It is the Juvias Place Liquid Bronzer, and I have mine in the shade Almond. It is what is like mostly on my face today. Is such a good liquid bronzer. You really don't need much, but it isn't like the Juvia's Place blushes, which some people find are really intensely pigmented. I think that this is just a touch less pigmented than the blushes, but still give enough richness. They have an incredible blend. This is absolutely high-end quality as far as the formula goes. It's really soft looking on the skin. It doesn't immediately transfer when you put it on, and it's not overly glowy either. I find that it actually has a little bit less glow than the Rare Beauty. Not that the Rare Beauty is like super dewy, but I just find that this is more of a satin-like product. Now, you might be saying, Amanda, the Rare Beauty gives you a half an ounce of product. You get way more product with the Rare Beauty. The Juvia's Place only gives you 0.16 ounces. Here's the thing though, and this is why it's really important to have like a very nuanced review. This has so much more pigment that you're still going to save money using this versus the Rare Beauty. And it's just in essence because of the formulas. The Rare Beauty, again, has way less concentrated pigment and it doesn't last quite as long, so you might need to be reapplying it, whereas once you apply the Juvia's Place, you're good and you need less overall. So for me personally, I think that it's worth just picking up the Juvia's Place. There's also another product that I think is very, very similar to both of these and even more affordable, which is the bronzer and contour from e.l.f. I have the Fair Light shade. I'm going to leave up swatches of all three of these so you can get a good sense of the color, but I absolutely love the e.l.f. Fair Light shade. I think it is so good. Definitely more neutral, even slightly pink. Either way, this blends beautifully. It's actually a little bit thinner than the Juvia's Place. Texture-wise, probably closer to the Rare Beauty. And listen, I know a lot of people are going to talk about this and want to compare it to the Say Dewdrops. This formula, the silkiness, is way closer to the Rare Beauty. But still, if you even want to try that product, I can see you still really enjoying this. I absolutely love it. I think it blends beautifully on the skin. Definitely one of my favorite products at the drugstore, hands down. And it definitely is cheaper than both the Juvia's Place and the Rare Beauty. So I've been a fan of these Patrick Ta Double Take Cream Powder blushes for a very long time, pretty much since the release. This is one of the newer shades, by the way. It's the shade She's the Moment. It's also very close to the shade Do We Know Her, which I believe they discontinued. I have to wonder if they discontinued it because the name is kind of, not like the best name. You essentially get this really, really pretty blurring blush, and then you have a creamy, more like translucent cream blush that you can add on top just to add some richness. Actually, most of the cream blushes from Patrick Ta that I have used have had more of that kind of like translucent cream blush. This one I think has a little bit more white base pigment, and I think it's just because it is more of a fluorescent kind of coral color. It's a very beautiful product. Another product similar to it is the One Size blushes, which for me, I don't even necessarily want to compare the dupe that I'm going to talk about to that, even though in the pan it does look more similar. I was not a fan of those from One Size just because I found the powders harder to work with, and there's an entire like sparkle blush within that I think is kind of a waste. They're not awful, but it just ended up not being a product that really fit me and my needs. I picked up from the Sephora Savings event this year the Blush 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 palette from Sephora Collection, and it is both affordable and absolutely lovely. And I gotta tell you guys, it's kind of difficult for me to want to recommend the ones from Patrick Ta now that I have tried these. These blushes, I actually kind of mixed them together. That's what I did today. This one doesn't even have like, it has a little pearl, but it's not a sparkle by any means, which again, the one from One Size is going to be sparkly. This one is not going to be. It's just more of a soft kind of luminosity. I digress. I mix both together. I apply it onto the cheeks, and then I take the cream and just tap it right on. You get the protective little piece of plastic so you don't get the powder inside. I find the cream cheek to be really juicy and pretty. It adds that intensity. It's so customizable. And ultimately, they actually have a pretty good shade range for being a house brand. I let you guys know, especially when these were 30% off, that this is like ridiculously, like a ridiculous good bang for your buck. I absolutely love them. You're going to get a very similar effect. And actually, I find these powders like easier to work with. The Patrick Ta blushes, because they're so blurring, they can almost kind of create an awkward effect if you don't have powder on the entirety of your face. It's kind of an awkward, like this looks blurred and this looks like it has makeup, and now this part of my face looks kind of awkward and feels like it needs to be set with powder. Maybe you guys will understand what I'm saying. If you're not someone that completely sets your entire face, that could potentially annoy you too. But either way, I absolutely love this. Highly, highly recommend this dupe. It is amazing. Now let's get into the eyes. The Armani eye tints, I feel like have such a cult following, and I, for one, am absolutely in love with the shade 46. This is beautiful. I love how thin it is on the eyes. It has this kind of like watercolor effect. You know, if you were ever familiar with the original Kosas liquid shadows, almost a similar formula to that, except a little bit creamier, you know, easier to work with in that when you did this, like all of it doesn't come out. These definitely have more heft to them. And there are matte and shimmer formulas within the range. So this does have more of a shade selection, more of a range. You know, you can choose between matte and shimmer, but they are slightly more translucent. You have to build them up, which I'm not opposed to. I think that these are beautiful. Again, they're still very, very pretty, but if you would like a similar effect, you just have to use a little bit less. The brand Half Caked, you can get them on Amazon. They have these Night Show liquid shadows. This is a smaller indie brand. I'm really happy to always like showcase their products because I think that they're super underrated. They have these liquid shadows that are so similar to the Armani eye tints because they have this really pretty metallic kind of finish. You just have to use a little bit less of the ones from half-caked if you're used to using the ones from Armani. And they're what's on my eyes today. I compared the shade hands down to the shade 46 for you guys. They're pretty similar, just a different undertone. And that is what is on my eyes today. They last just as long as the Armani eye tints. You know, you'll get a solid 6-hour wear out of these. They will slightly crease. They're not like bulletproof, but they are very skin loving and pretty on the eyes. They have this really gorgeous shine to them. And the Night Show has a very pretty selection of colors. I'll leave up some swatches for you guys of like a variety of shades that they have. They don't have mattes. Armani does have mattes. But the Night Show, I mean, you can get a lot of those shades for the price of one of the Armani. I did want to throw that alternative out to you guys. You know, when I'm doing these dupe videos, when I'm talking about alternatives, again, I always like to give you guys the nitty-gritty of each product so that you can ultimately find the one that's going to truly work best for you. But again, I'm a stickler, and I think that they are so similar that many of you will be a fan. And can I just also say, liquid shadows are so hard to formulate. They often look so weird on the eyes. They don't want to blend. They're not user-friendly. The fact that you can get such a good one at an affordable price, just really hats off to Half Caked. I think they did an amazing job. You guys, I'm not even going to be coy about it because I've had a long day. I don't want to be coy. If you are a fan of the Glossier Generation G's, please try the new Versed Cashmere Color Lip Blushes. These are the smoothing lip blushes. Like, I have the shade, I only have one shade so far, the shade Reserve. I have chronically dry lips. I also have realized, like it wasn't obvious to me before, I also am like a lip chewer. I think that that really contributes to the quality of like my lips. This does not look dry on dry lips. It is so smoothing and blurring without looking like a lot of product sitting on the lips, which, I mean, if you are a fan of a blurring lip product, you know that can actually be difficult to find. Like, this really synergizes and doesn't look like it's sitting on top of the lips. It feels like a true just like matte lip balm. Texture is insane. This is, I would not be surprised if these would be in Best of Beauty for 2025. They're absolutely beautiful. Just so layerable. Such an amazing, amazing formula. Please, Versed. They already have an absolutely gorgeous shade selection, but I would probably buy like every single color of these. Again, the Glossier Generation G's, it's a stiffer formula. It also, I don't know, I want to say that they removed the scent, but maybe they didn't. It smells so intensely floral, like kind of nauseatingly floral. The Versed smells like nothing. And they're very pretty. I actually have grown to really love, by the way, this is the shade Jam, to really love the reformulated version of the Generation G's. But I just think at this point, the Versed is just as good. The colors are just as pretty, and it is more affordable. And also, Versed packaging is pretty cute. Very simple. I just feel like I had to throw that last one out for you guys. You guys, I was about to turn off my camera and I realized I almost forgot about one of the dupes that I'm the most excited about. All this talk about Glossier had me thinking about it. I was like, I know I'm forgetting something. The Glossier Stretch Concealer. This is a product that is such a nice emollient kind of light coverage concealer. I think so many of us, when this released, we were used to very heavy concealers that came in a pot, kind of almost waxy, more like very, very glam, kind of professional makeup or even stage makeup. Glossier kind of turned that idea when they came out with this on its head. This is so natural, really, really light, buildable. You can definitely get more coverage out of it as you continue to build it, but very emollient and dewy, looks really fresh under the eyes. And I think a lot of us, at least I did, would kind of just put a brush into this and then kind of tap it onto any areas. And the lovely part about it is that I didn't have to wear a full skin tint or a full foundation in order to wear this and the coverage kind of look awkward on the skin. It always looked very natural. And it is a very nice product. There is an affordable brand called Salt New York. I'm sure some of you guys have heard of this brand. And they have this little product called the Best Case Concealer. I know for a fact that the refills of this are less expensive than the Glossier, and I'm almost positive I still have an affiliate code with them. So this is definitely going to be cheaper than the Glossier Stretch Concealer. You can't walk into Sephora and get it, but you are supporting an indie brand, an independent brand. So Salt New York has created, I think, a more buildable version of the Glossier Stretch Concealer. It's a little tackier, so it wants to, like, the layers will stick together and build more coverage, whereas the Glossier is a little bit, it's dewier, it's more emollient, and though the Best Case Concealer does have emollients to it, it does set down more than the Glossier does. And they also make my favorite color corrector for under my eyes, which is their peach shade, and it is absolutely fabulous. But using this alone, just taking it with either like my Hourglass concealer brush or my concealer brush from BK, I can actually just press, again, under the eyes onto any like spots I have, and I never feel like this has like too much coverage to really notice like the single spots of concealer. I think it's my favorite Salt New York product personally. I think they just did an incredible job with it. Highly, highly recommend this concealer. And in specific, I think the color corrector is, again, my favorite color corrector at this point. If you are a fan of the Glossier Stretch Concealer, there's a good chance that you can save a little bit of money and try out the one from Salt New York instead. And by the way, leave me some of your favorite drugstore dupes down below, and maybe I'll do a video kind of testing them out. And do you guys want to see, in general, more of these videos? Because I have plenty more dupes. I can do like a best of the best dupes. Very lastly, if you guys found the video helpful, please make sure to give it a thumbs up. It helps other people find the video. I'll leave everything I talked about down below. Thank you guys for being here, and I will see you in my next one.